again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Start of a new week, start of a new month, and transfer rumours abound on the transfer show with me, Joe and Ross tonight. A slight change this week due to me having a night off on Wednesday, so we've had to switch a few things around. The Geordie's here, Geordie's there, lads, also needed a swap, so got plenty to talk about, lads. Before we start on the breaking news that we had in the last half hour, let's just all join the platitudes, the congratulations towards the Lionesses who came away with the Euros last night, the European trophy, and there it is in their hands against the Germans, no less. And it didn't take penalties, Joe. I'm not sure if you watched it. I did. I managed to catch the game. And the Germans did their best to kick England out of their stride in the first half. The referee wasn't having the best of games. But the women did it where the men, where the men often fail.
Absolutely fantastic, wasn't it, Steve? I've really enjoyed this tournament, to be fair. And I must admit, I'll hold my hand up. I don't watch a massive amount of ladies football. I've seen a couple of WSL games. Obviously, my interest was piqued when Amanda and Merdad said that women's football, was going to be kind of championed at Newcastle. And I tell you what an achievement, what a day for English football, to see Wembley virtually full. The celebrations afterwards were better than the game, just to see the lasses go nuts. It was fantastic. And obviously it took the tune to win it for England. So long may it continue. There's a World Cup next year. And why not? This is a real platform now for the women's game. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Questionable kind of tactics from Germany, questionable refereeing, which was nice, getting us ready for next week, of course. But hey, what an achievement! Yeah, dead proud of them.
Ross, great to see them winning at Wembley, and the song "It's Coming Home" being made redundant by one of our national teams at long last.
Yeah, it's home. It's finally home. Just really. I mean, I'm big enough and daft enough to admit I got quite emotional at times last night. During the celebrations, kind of post match, which it took me a little bit by surprise, if I'm being honest. It was just a fantastic game, fantastic occasion. I think the legacy that's going to come out from this is going to be huge for girls football, for women's football throughout the country. What was really refreshing as well was some of those interviews after the game on the pitch, those post-match interviews. Just sheer kind of unadulterated joy. Seeing footballers who haven't been media trained within an inch of their lives as well. Just coming out with the unbridled joy that we all feel when we win something, when we're on the terraces, when we're playing five-a-side, whatever it is. It was just fantastic to see, fantastic to hear. Fantastic to watch, and the women's game is come on a heck of a lot over the last few years, and hopefully with the profile that this will bring, with the legacy, the investment that will come into schools where let's be honest, it still lags behind with women's and girls football and the opportunities, but the investment that will come in, hopefully into academies, into schools. Into grassroots football, we can create more and more of these magical moments going forward again.
Yeah, fingers crossed. On NUFC Matters over the last couple of years, Liam Kennedy's show on a Tuesday has probably taken the mantle for breaking news just before we went on air. And Liam often used to get the blame for conjuring up these stories to try and bring a little bit of interest to the show. But no need for that, because it is official. It's all over the Sky Sports news coverage that we've seen in the last hour, and that is that there has been an increased bid, Joe, for James Maddison. Now, the only thing that we are doubtful on is the exact amount. Obviously, the the amount that was, bandied around at the weekend in the press was 40 million. I think Craig Hope was the only man who was saying, well, look, it's 35 million pound plus add-ons. That's what I've heard. And similarly with this story that's just broken in the last 45 minutes, 50 million plus add-ons, most of the press are reporting. Craig Hope is saying 45 million with add-ons, but it's all academic to us because ultimately it shows that Newcastle have big intentions of trying to make this the marquee signing. What's your thoughts?
Am I allowed to start to get excited, gentlemen? We've been waiting. I was waiting for Sven Botman, as you know, and now all of a sudden we're looking at the top end. And I tell you what, Steve, this was a player, when we were linked with Harvey Barnes and when we were linked with Tielemans and we were even linked with Kasper Schmeichel at one point, if you remember, at the start of the window. One lad that I was thinking, do you know what? If you could pick anybody up from Leicester City, obviously it'd be James Maddison. This lad's a proper footballer. Fantastic in the middle of the park. Exactly what we've been missing, really, what we've been lacking the last couple of seasons. That real link between what the guys do in the centre circle and what we do on the edge of the 18-yard box. 25 years old, so he's, hopefully the best years are still ahead of him. For a split second, I wondered if there was a bit of shenanigans going on, and was this Newcastle's way of playing the market a little bit and thinking about getting our friend from Leon, was this a little shout out to Paqueta's people to say, hey, we're going to have to move on here. But the more I think about it, guys, and the more I think about this lad, I think this would be a wonderful signing, Steve. Proper number 10. And interestingly, this might answer what we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. What is in Eddie Howe's thinking in relation to that midfield and how we link the midfield to the strike force. And if James Maddison coming in as our number 10, no matter what shirt number he wears, I'll be absolutely over the moon. I'll be delighted. And, 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, what's the going rate for a top draw English young lad? Only one cap for England, which surprises me. But I tell you what, over 130 games for Leicester City, he'll do for me all day long. So this is one I am absolutely hoping that we can do.
I said it on Saturday's show with Mick Lowes. I mean, this is the player that I talked about quite heavily in January. I said if there was a player that I would like to see come in, it was James Maddison. Been one of my favourite players for a long time in opposition ranks, Ross. He's everything that, I've felt that Newcastle have lacked in the midfield in recent years. And he's 25, Ross. 50 million pounds for a 25-year-old who still has ambitions, it's said, to play for England, only the one cap. What's your take on this breaking news tonight?
Look, it's a really interesting one because it does mark a shift in the kind of the transfer policy to an extent, because the targets were wide forward, so a right winger, a wide right hand side player, and a central striker potentially as well. We know that the issues that the club have had in terms of trying to recruit those positions, and it looks now that the maybe's going to kind of plan B, plan C, whatever you want to call it, and looking at a different type of player that they feel they can get the creativity that is desperately needed still, if we're being honest, in that final third. There's some good players in that final third, but the end product there, that little bit of quality is just not quite there. So that's really interesting in the kind of the shift, because he comes in, how does he fit? If he comes in, how does he fit in? Does he fit in? And is it still a 4-3-3? And he's the most focal point and the most forward player in that midfield three, and kind of plays almost a 4-2-3-1 if you like, and he's that number 10, or does he play off the flank? Does he play off the side a little bit, which he can do as well, but it's probably not his best position. So it's an interesting one, because it does mark a shift in kind of the strategy and the policy that I think that the club's clearly been looking at for the rest of the transfer window. In terms of his quality, you can't doubt his quality. There's absolutely no doubting that he comes in and he improves the squad. He comes in and he immediately goes into that first team and improves the team. He's an exceptional player when he's on his game. He's like any flair player. He'll have his ups and downs, but I think he's shown enough over the last 6 to 8 months that he's got that kind of consistency. There's not many better in his position English players within the league. I think England are very blessed in that department with your Mason Mounts and so on, and your Phil Fordens and so on and so forth, which is probably one of the reasons why he hasn't quite won as many England caps as what you would expect for someone of his quality. I do think they're going to have to go back in though and improve that offer. I don't think Leicester will accept the increased offer. I'd be surprised. I think Leicester are going to hold out for closer to 60. But what is also telling around this is that there's been a lot of noise. Some of it loud, some of it a little bit quieter behind the scenes about Leicester's finances and about Leicester's transfer situation at the minute. They're the only Premier League club who hasn't bought a player yet this summer. They are tight on finances. They do need to potentially to offload somebody to bring the money in to refresh the squad. Clubs have known about this. You know, there was a piece on the Chronicle we did a couple of probably a week or so ago about Leicester's transfer situation. So I don't think there's that. I think clubs in Newcastle have become aware of that and just thought let's see if we can capitalise on this with our reputation now, increased reputation and ambition, and with the finances that we've got, we can maybe take advantage. It would be a fantastic signing, absolutely outstanding signing. But I would, and I don't want to sound like too negative on it. I do think it's got a little way to go, and I do still think that there needs to be another forward player brought in to kind of complement the rest of the team as well.
Ross, you say it's changing in finance, in transfer budget, transfer plans. Is it not something to do with the loan deal that they took out last week? Because obviously, Newcastle are still, massively short with firepower. Haven't got a marquee signing in, unless you're going to say that Sven Botman was marquee to the fans. That's not a marquee signing, I don't think. Do you not think it's something to do with the loan that they took out last week? The loan side of things that they did last week?
Yeah, I don't think it's no coincidence. It's the point of getting that loan in was to make the club more cash rich, to give them more flexibility in the transfer market in terms of the down payment that they can play. Now this Maddison deal that's been put forward is like every transfer deal. It's very, very complicated in terms of the structure, payment, how much is put down initially, how much is how when the payments are going to be made, what the clauses and the add-ons and everything else like that. But Newcastle are in a much stronger position financially than what they were last week, like you say, because of this loan that they've taken out. It means that they can offer Leicester or any other club a significant amount up front, which is very, very appealing to clubs. It gives them a lot more flexibility, and it does potentially mean that they can go and bring in Maddison and bring in somebody else as well. It not just be restricted to the kind of the one big deal that they were looking at. So yeah, we'll wait and see how this one pans out. And it's got everybody excited. Like I say, I do think there's a little way to go on it. Now, I'd be surprised if Leicester come back today or tomorrow and say, yeah, off we go. But Maddison, from what I've gathered, it wants to come. He's interested in it himself. Leicester have obviously need to do something financially. Newcastle are in a strong position. It's got the makings of something that could potentially go through this one, I think.
Joe, lots of interesting comments in the chat. I keep putting them up on screen. I hope you're catching some of them. But I mean, a lot of people, obviously impressed with Maddison. People saying it's a good deal. There is a couple of people saying, not for me. Why don't we get Paqueta? Paqueta would be cheaper and a better player because he plays alongside Bruno. That gives you a taste of what some of those comments have said. I mean, if it's a straight toss-up between Paqueta and Maddison, where do you stand?
It's a great question, Steve, isn't it? If you're talking about Premier League pedigree, if you're talking about someone who's going to hit the ground running, you sign James Maddison, don't you? And also the other thing is, don't forget as well, and I hope I'm right in what I say, but hopefully this season we're looking to join the likes of Leicester City. If we're aiming for that kind of 10 to 6 spot will be competing with the likes of Leicester City. So arguably, and it's interesting as Ross says, you know, if there's financial issues there at Leicester City, but I tell you what, one of the best ways to compete with people is to take the best players off them. So I think this is a real statement of intent signing. Yes, we know about Paqueta. We know about this telepathy with Bruno, and the fact that, you know, that would potentially be a great partnership, Steve. But listen, you know, the interesting thing about Paqueta, of course, is I think what we were all saying is, was there any credence in it? Was there any legs in it? Was it just something that he comes on holiday with Bruno and next thing you know, he's signing for Newcastle? We don't need this type of midfielder. And next thing you know, we put £50 million on the table for James Maddison. So listen, I'd be delighted with Maddison. I'd be delighted with Paqueta as well, I must admit. And I'm getting back on the fence again, like I tend to. But I think for me, if Maddison's becoming a possibility, I think we sign Maddison, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the way I look at it, Joe. I mean, ultimately for me, the guy's got Premier League pedigree. Some in the chat questioning the fact that, you know, Maddison is somebody said he's as bad as Grealish off the pitch, and he's got problems off the pitch. I mean, look, yeah, he fell off the way, the straight road a little bit, but he's back on now, and he's clearly wanting to play football and, you know, get himself in the shop window for the big for the big England World Cup trip to Qatar, I guess. And where better to do that than Newcastle, where there's a new project on, and you know, from his perspective, you know, he's not Gaza, you know, thinking of somebody who, you know, who's at the far end of the spectrum. He's certainly not got that kind of reputation, and I just get the impression he needs a new challenge, Joe.
Yeah, it's interesting, Steve, as well, isn't it? Because we've talked a lot about, you know, if the rumours were to be believed, you know, were we offered the opportunity to sign the Paul Pogbas of this world? And Eddie Howe quite rightly said, absolutely not. I don't want these people allegedly anywhere near my squad. We talk a lot about the character of individuals. We talk a lot about how they're going to fit into that dressing room. So I think, you know, if for one moment there was a touch of the Jack Grealish about this lad, would Eddie Howe be just saying, well, hang on a minute? Or is it something that, you know, we all do daft things? We'll always do daft things, you know, and maybe he's been a young lad, he's had a lot of money, but if he's going to settle down, if he's going to say the right things and do the right things, yeah, you know, Newcastle, you know, there must be something decent about his character, Steve. Otherwise, we don't put £50 million on the table. So, listen, you know, he can have a pint for me if he helps us win the FA Cup, can't he?
We've stuck a poll on the community section of YouTube, so if you want to go on there and vote, simple question: who do you want, Maddison or Paqueta? We'll keep an eye on that as the show progresses. Paqueta, Ross, I mean, again, you know, Joe's said it there himself. You know, we've never really been sure whether there's been any genuine interest in Paqueta. We still don't, and I'll come on to Jack Harrison in a minute. But you know, again, it's a lot of it's paper talk, and at least we know with Maddison, this is concrete. Newcastle have had a bid rejected. Now they've gone back in with a second bid, so we know, you know, Newcastle are keen on this player. That's the difference. Paqueta, who would you prefer, Ross?
If it was me making the decision, it would have to be James Maddison. I've not seen enough of Paqueta. I'm sure everybody in the chat and everybody all over social media, they've all watched him, you know, 87 times in person and have got in-depth scouting reports on him. But I don't have that, you know. So I would be telling Porties if I said I knew what he looked like as a player. Yeah, he's Bruno's pal. Yeah, look, I've got mates who are trying to get to come to my team as well. Sometimes when I was playing, you know, so that's not how transfers work. It's about getting the right player in that suits the team, suits the club. So Maddison, for me, you know, he's proven in the Premier League, and people can say Premier League quality overrated or you know, pedigrees, it's overrated. Look at what Newcastle are doing. Look at the players that they've signed. Nick Pope, Premier League experience. Kieran Trippier, Premier League experience. Dan Burn, Premier League experience. Matt Targett, Chris Wood. There's no, it's a philosophy that the club have got that they want to bring in players who know the league, who can add value, who are at a good age, good temperament. Maddison's had his kind of issues, yes, but the other thing, the flip side of that for me is that, again, you watch his interviews after games. He's a very confident, very sparky, very He's not your bog standard footballer. He's got a little bit of something about him. To come up here and play in front of 52,000 fans in a kind of Calden atmosphere, you've got to have something about you. You can't be a shrinking violet. You've got to be a type of character who will thrive, who will enjoy that, who will relish it, like a Bruno has, like a Kieran Trippier has. You can't just be a kind of shrinking violet. He's certainly not that. He's possibly the other side of that, if you like, the other side of the line on that. But in terms of character and spark, I think he'd be a fantastic addition.
A lot of people asking the question in the chat about the outstanding £8 million that Leicester owe us for Perez. Is that true, Ross, do you think? Is that something you've seen reported?
Not one that I'm aware of. I wouldn't be surprised because, like I said earlier on, these deals are always structured where in terms of down payments, in terms of kind of your mortgage payments, and you'll structure them over certain ways. So absolutely wouldn't surprise us, and that might then obviously be built into any deal that they tried to do. But equally, I know that in the past, when deals have gone through of this kind of ilk, where money has still been owed by a club to another club over a historic deal, that sometimes it's best just to separate these things as well, and just say, right, you still owe the 8 million for Perez or whatever it is. Let's just park that one. We'll structure the Maddison deal as it is now. So yeah, these deals, they're never all paid up front. Very rarely all paid up front. There's always spread over sometimes over the length of a player's contract. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is still some money owed on the Perez deal.
Okay, well, let's watch this space. Obviously, it's now Leicester's move. We'll have to see whether they're going to play a ball at 50 million, and whether whether they come back and say no and we're going to go again, or whether we have to see Mr. Maddison put his money where his mouth is and perhaps put a transfer request in and then see where we go from there. But also on the Twitter feed, not the news feed, it has to be said, is this guy who has been linked with Newcastle throughout the transfer window, Jack Harrison, and Newcastle led to believe still interested in this man. And again, Joe, I did go through the the various local newspapers, national newspapers, all the different Twitter accounts to try and find something concrete on Harrison. I've got to be honest, I found nothing. I'm not sure whether this is just one of those that's been tweeted out by somebody and has gained traction. But Harrison, if we get Maddison, is this somebody we really want? Because I think most fans, and I don't think very often I don't speak for the fans, but I think if we get Maddison in, then surely the next port of call is bringing the elusive goal scorer in.
It won't go away, chaps, will it? We've been talking about Harrison now for best part of 6 weeks, I think. And it's always interesting, isn't it? I mentioned it last week about Paqueta, funnily enough. You expect Leeds United to say go away, or you expect the player to say, I know Harrison made some comment about looking forward to getting back to Leeds. But this is an interesting one, Steve. Again, I mean, unfashionable name, I guess. But in the week that we've apparently bid £50 million for James Maddison, here we are talking about another 40 million for Jack Harrison. So it's an interesting one. I said, as much as it doesn't really bother me, but Leeds United cannot just keep continuing to sell all their best players, can they? Unless, as Ross said, there's financial kind of difficulties there as well. So I don't know on this one, Steve. I think this is the one that gets me the least excited of all of the multi-million-pound players we've been linked with lately. Solid player, steady away, knows the Premier League, puts a shift in every now and again, decent quality delivery, but I don't know, I'm not sure. And it's interesting you talk about if Maddison comes in, then what about these wingers? Do we start to think about, does Maddison start to play in off that right-hand side and kind of just float around a little bit?
He can play right wing.
Yeah. Is that part of the thinking? So I think you're right, Steve. I think if we're thinking about, because I'm still absolutely sold on the fact that we will be bringing a centre forward in, because I think we have to. So if you're signing James Maddison and Jack Harrison and a centre forward, the Cornet rumours haven't gone away. How much is too much? So I'm not sure on Harrison, to be fair.
Jack Harrison, Ross, I've not seen anything concrete on this one. Have you?
There's definitely there's interest there. He's on the list. He's certainly on the list as far as I'm aware. And it's, we know that it's a kind of a lengthy list. It's one of them where I've said before on the show. I've said before that you don't just put all your eggs in one basket. You don't just go, right, this is the one that we're going for, and all of a sudden it doesn't come off and you're left scrabbling around. You'll have a number one target, you'll have your first choice, but you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other players who've all been identified as being somebody that I think A, they can get, B, who can add value, and they'll be keeping them kind of pans simmering beneath the top one. Harrison's certainly one that they've had conversations about, just as they've had conversations about, your Diabys and obviously various others as well. Your Timo Werners and your Callum Hudson-Odoi, they're all players that they're considering, that they're thinking, right, well, if this one doesn't come off, we might be able to get this one. We'll speak to his agent. Is he interested? Is he somebody who's available? What's his situation? Is he happy at Leeds? What's Leeds' situation? These conversations are always happening behind the scenes. They're always simmering away underneath while you're working on one. You're stirring one pot and then you're trying to keep the heat up on another and you're bringing it down on a third one. It's a complicated business. Harrison's somebody that's definitely somebody that they've discussed and they've scouted and they've had conversations about. But whether it comes to something probably depends on other deals first and foremost.
Okay, question in for you from Tom Dixon. Ross, he says, is there any news on goalkeeping coach or a new physio at the club?
Nothing that I've heard, no. Obviously, Simon Smith left the club. They will be looking to bring in as quickly as possible, but nothing that I'm aware of on that one.
Okay, interesting. PDK, his comment, you might have seen it there when it came up on the screen. And it's something that I heard somebody say on Sky Sports News as well. Maddison could be using us to get a new contract, Joe. Do you think that's in his mindset, or do you think he fancies the project?
I'd like to think he fancies the project, Steve. I'd like to think that, like Sven Botman said at the end of the day, there is a project. And if our owners are to be believed, watch us go over the next kind of 2 or 3 seasons. So, yeah, why not? And do you know what? This lad's been part of a football club that's been on a tremendous journey, so to think about the opportunity to do it again as a 25-year-old, it's a World Cup year. And would you prefer to be playing at St James's Park, as Ross has said, in a progressive side under Eddie Howe? Or would you be, let's be honest, I mean, they are a good side. They're a very, very good side. But for me, Leicester City have been almost taking backward steps, certainly over the last 2 seasons. Listen, there's better ways to get a contract, Steve. Surely he just talks to his agent who talks to the football club. He doesn't have to go to the likes of Ross and say, by the way, I want a new contract. So, put a headline up to say that I'm going to Newcastle or Man City or whatever. I'm not sure it works like that anymore, Steve. I'm sure the clubs are fully aware through the contact they have with their agents, who's happy, who's unhappy, and who wants a new contract or not. I don't think you have to play ping pong with Newcastle United to get a new contract.
I would agree with you. I mean, look, it's all about opinions. These things could happen, and let's hope that's not the case, because we feel like we've been messed around by Ekitike. Let's hope we're not falling for the same kind of bait twice. Lots to talk about. I will try and get through some of your questions before the end of the show, and I've also asked Ross and Joe to come up with their starting 11s for the Forest game, which of course is 3:00 on Saturday. So we will do that before the end of the show. I can see Ross with his pen now scribbling it down, hoping he can get the thing over the line before the end of the show. Okay, big thank you to Spider Miner worldwide coverage from the lads. The only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245, and a Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.gohd.com. Thanks to Away Day Clothing, and thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's handmade sauces in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk or give them a call on 01768 210 102. Thanks also to Media Arts for all the help with their video technology. If you want to subscribe and you're a new visitor to the channel, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right hand corner. You can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like the video. It does us a big favour. Click share to your social media. Maybe it's a Newcastle United group on Facebook or to your Twitter account. It does help spread the word of NUFC Matters. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, we're available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. You can also join us by clicking join underneath and making a small donation or paying a one-off fee via nufcmatters.com. And you can get a pen, a cup, a membership card, and a scarf, an entry into the monthly draw. You can also use the QR code if you've got a smartphone to take you straight there. We do send out free car stickers to anyone who subscribes. Just email john@nufcmatters.com. And please donate to the food bank, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. The matchday bucket is where you can make a virtual donation today, and it is greatly appreciated. You can still join the NUFC Matters Super 6 Score Predictor, join the Matters gang, enter into our own league. It's a tenner per entry for the season, cash prize winner every month, exclusive Manager of the Month t-shirt, cash prize for overall season winner, and trophy of Manager of the Year t-shirt. Sign up now at nufcmatters.com. And the Peter Beardsley Soccer School is in full flight now during the summer. If you've got a youngster who would be interested in going along this August, get yourself onto peterbeardsleySoccerSchool.com for more information. Okay, on to the questions that were posted in the first part of the show. Ross, have you heard any links with a goal scorer? It would be the final piece in the summer jigsaw puzzle if we land Maddison as well, that is. And of course, the Timo Werner story is still doing the rounds as well, Ross. Potentially a loan deal has been mentioned now. What's your thoughts on the striker situation? Any new rumours that we should be aware of?
Nothing particularly new on that front. No, the way they are still looking, they definitely want to bring another forward in. The Maddison deal, I don't think will change that. They'll still look to bring in somebody who can act as a support for Callum Wilson and Chris Wood. Werner's a really good shout because he can play through the middle and he can play wide as well. I haven't heard any fresh names mentioned, if I'm being honest. But I think there's definitely going to be scope between now and the end of the month. Let's be honest, James Maddison's name wasn't mentioned a couple of days ago or certainly a week ago. There's definitely they're confident in doing the business that they're doing. They've got the list of targets, some of which we know because they do leak out, some of which we don't know at the minute. But I'd be really shocked if a forward didn't come in before the end of the window.
Joe, the Werner story just won't go away, will it? It's just doing the rounds time and time again. And I've got to be honest, that would do me. Maddison and Werner, I think it's been a cracking window anyway. But if we could get those two over the line, and even if Werner is on loan till the end of the season, I'll be happy. But I think if we don't get Werner, I'd love to see us get Brozier. At least somebody coming through the door who gives us another option up front. Yeah.
Really interesting what Ross has just said there, isn't it? About James Maddison wasn't a player that we've spoke about, and all of a sudden here we are with 50 mil on the table. I caused enough controversy last week describing Werner as cack. I didn't mean it in its literal sense, but you know, there are better strikers. And I'm led to believe, did I read today that allegedly on £270,000 a week? Is that right, Ross? I mean, that's got to be absolutely nowhere near what Newcastle United will go anywhere near a week for a footballer at the moment. But it's really interesting. Barry Hogan asked us a question last week, didn't he? And I think he literally said, all right, then, which striker would you sign? And I couldn't think of one. I absolutely, yes, chip as I am, yeah. I couldn't think of one. I absolutely could not think of one. And like you say, Steve, the Werner thing just does not go away. There was a question in the chat earlier about the odds for Werner to come to Newcastle. The latest odds that I can find is 10-1. If you're to believe the bookies, he's odds on to go to Juventus. He was 4-1 at one stage. That's come down to odds on. 3-1 for Leipzig, and 4-1 to stay at Chelsea. So if you believe the bookies don't fancy him coming to Newcastle, and certainly not for £270,000 a week. He won't be coming to Newcastle.
No, that's interesting, isn't it, really? Kevin Smith, I'm inclined to agree with you regarding Maddison. We're interested and others will step in annoying but factual. Lots of people commenting on the Maddison deal. It seems to me, though, that a lot of people are up for bringing Maddison in. I think it's the Premier League experience, ultimately, that that makes people go with that deal more than the Paqueta one, Joe.
Yeah, and it's interesting to get your thoughts, really, chaps, and in the chat. Do we think, are we on the verge of turning into Manchester City? We're talking a lot about signing a centre forward, and we know that there's a team there who do pretty all right week after week, who don't own a centre forward. And is there something in the fact that if it's not Wilson, we start to have a bit of a rejig? Miggy Almiron's banging goals in left, right, and centre in pre-season. Sam Maximin's gone up front before. If Maddison was in these, they call them false nines, whatever that is. And all of a sudden, if you're looking at these kind of footballers, how much of an actual priority is what we might call a number 9. So just another interesting point there. But yeah, certainly, whether it's Paqueta, Steve, or whether it is Maddison, whether it's Werner, whether it's Brozier, whether it's whatever, I absolutely agree with what you've said. We have to sign some forward players. That's the harsh reality of it.
Could we do with Man City, Ross? Could we play without a recognised striker if Wilson gets injured? Do you think that would be Eddie Howe's thinking, and just break the bank to bring in these midfielders and wingers? I think he's obviously thought about how he would play without Callum Wilson. Now he's still got Chris Wood, and Wood is a good, I don't know, third option if you like, target man type of player who will try to link it up a little bit, but can run in behind. But he has spoken in pre-season about potentially playing somebody like Joe Linton or even St. Maximin through the middle. I think to play that false 9, that false 9 system without a recognised centre forward, I think needs a lot of work on the training ground. Obviously, Guardiola's a magician on the training ground, and he's played that system before at Barca and in some occasional games at Bayern as well. So he knows how to coach that. He knows how to get that out of it, and he's got a level of player in Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden and Jack Grealish who can play that 10 that false 9. I think asking somebody like Miggy Almiron or somebody else to do it would probably be a step too far for us at the minute. Like I said, I do expect to bring another forward in. Brozier's the one I think that there could still be some movement on between now and the end of the window. Once the Chelsea season starts, he sees where he fits into there. Chelsea have got their forward options, and he realises, actually, I might not be getting a sniff yet. I think there could be another loan deal or later on in the window for Brozier, but there will be other clubs interested in him, obviously, as well. So, we'll see how the rest of the window pans out. But he's definitely going to be looking at different ways that he can fill that Wilson gap. Fingers crossed he doesn't have to, and Callum Wilson stays fit for the majority of the season. But I think everybody on this
this show and in the chat has concerns about that.
Yeah, no, I think people do, and yeah, rightly so. Does the potential arrival of Maddison, Joe, spell the end for another one of our midfielders, possibly Shelvey?
Yeah, potentially. And I'll make a public apology. Obviously, I forgot that Man City have just signed Erling Haaland, the best striker in the world, of course. So I'll shut up.
Last season, I mean, your point was valid in the sense that for the last couple of seasons they haven't really played with a recognised striker.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Guardiola will have a look at him and think we don't need him and we can sign him. But yeah, I think it's interesting, Steve. For me, the whole. Everything that we've been talking about, haven't we, all pivots on which way is Eddie Howe going to play. And I think every single week, every player that we get linked with, there's a real kind of but what if that happens, and but what if that happens. And like Ross said, I'm sure Eddie Howe's got a plan A, B, C, and D. And I don't know whether are we in the market at the moment for. Are we just bringing in players because they're available and we can get them and we can sign them and we'll make them fit? Or is there a huge blueprint that we're working towards, and all these other 500 players that we've been linked with is all just nonsense? And it was always going to be kind of, James Maddison, and it was always going to be Brozier, and it was always going to be Target and whoever else we've signed. So I think that's the biggest one for me. And I think, we've only got 4 or 5 days left to find out. We'll know exactly. I'm really interested to see what Ross has got down for his potential starting 11. Because I think that's going to say everything for me, Steve. The formation's going to dictate a lot, I think.
Get your votes in on the community page on YouTube. It's if you just go to our homepage, you'll see along the top it says community. Click community. The poll is at the top. So far, NUFC fans, who would you like, Maddison or Paqueta? Maddison, 51%. Paqueta, 49%. Interesting. Very, very tight. Ross, end of Shelvey, do you think? Or would he be back up? Or is it Murphy who's likely to get pushed out the door?
I think the one who could get pushed out the door if Maddison comes in actually is there's probably two for me. I think Elliot Anderson will probably end up going out on loan. I think if he's that kind of Elliot Anderson's that kind of number 10, that attacking midfielder. He's let's be honest, he's not at the level of James Maddison yet. So it might be something that is used as an opportunity to send Elliot Anderson back out on loan to the Championship and get some more experience under his belt. The other one, I think the way where Maddison plays is really quite high up the pitch. Shelvey, Eddie Howe sees as being this kind of quarterback, if you like, just in front of the back four. You can pick the ball up, get his passing going, hit his Roy the Rovers balls into row Z. Into the feet of St. Maximin on the left-hand side. I think Joe Willock is the one that I'd be looking at if I was Joe Willock and I was seeing Newcastle linked with James Maddison. I'd be thinking, where do I sit in this team? Because that was his role. That was that box to box, arriving late, getting goals, in and around the 18-yard box, picking little bits up and trying to create. If I was Joe Willock, I'd be slightly concerned at the minute.
Yeah,
really interesting.
Good.
Sorry, Steve. Yeah, really interesting. I actually had Joe Willock in my 11, and the more I thought about it, I took him out. Interestingly, I replaced him with John Joe Shelvey, which is, I think, what Eddie Howe will do. So I think for me, Ross is right. I mean, if you're looking at, he cannot, after the resurgence of Joe Linton, I'll burn my season ticket if he gets dropped. So I think I can't see it being him. It will not be Bruno for very obvious reasons. So it can only be one of those two. And I think you're right, Ross. I mean, did we see enough? I mean, Joe Willock under Steve Bruce, by the way, was England class. He kept us up to all intents and purposes, didn't he? Under Eddie Howe, it just hasn't happened for whatever reason. So yeah, I tend to agree. I think it will be Joe Willock if we sign Maddison.
Okay, what's the news on Draxler? Because we were talking about him last week, Ross, as a potential. Has that gone cold?
I think I said last week it's not one that I've been made aware of that there's interest there. I think that one possibly is a kind of bit of agent talk or agent driven or something along those lines. I might be wrong, but in no doubt I'll come back on here in a week's time and Newcastle have signed him and I'll look like a fool, but or bigger fool than usual. But Draxler's not one that's high on the list that I'm aware of anyhow.
Joe doesn't really get the heart fluttering, does it, that one, to be fair, but and we're gone are the days of anybody will do. We want quality at Newcastle.
I said last week, Steve, I like him. He's a World Cup winning German international, but again, I mean, where is he on the lists that Ross talks about? Is he even on a list? It seemed to kind of come in, didn't it, that story, and we got a little bit excited, and then nobody's mentioned him for 7 days. So yeah, I just wonder if there's any movement in the Maddison story. I wonder if it's a case of hang on, actually though, as decent and as available as Draxler may be, Maddison's the kiddie and let's do that. So I think if we were playing fantasy football or we were playing Football Manager, of course, I think we'd be saying, yeah, bring them all in, just get them all in. But that ain't going to work and it's going to absolutely destroy the squad, isn't it? So maybe Maddison's the man.
Simon says we're forgetting 5 subs this season, so plenty of playing time for more than the starting 11, and you need a decent bench, which is a good point. Barry says, can we have a bet on Joe on how many games before Joe Ellington gets sent off?
It's great, Barry. I've been sat today thinking about there's a rumour that the Toon Tipster might be returning on a Friday night for 5 minutes, and I was thinking about the food bank bet this season. And I thought, do we just stick with the goals, or actually do I do a Joe Linton cards? Because the way he's running around kind of clattering people and that, we'll be donating 20 grand to the food bank. So yeah, it's a great shout. He's now a midfield destroyer, isn't he? So he's got to put his foot in, and invariably he'll get booked.
I think he's channeling the inner Steve Wraith. Ross will be testament to that, because that's all I used to do on a Sunday morning. And I didn't do a very good job. I got picked up some yellow cards and I was at Durham FA quite a bit, and I didn't work there. Unbelievable, Ross, to see Joe Linton. He has put himself about, isn't he?
He is. He's a big old unit, and he's taken on this enforcer's role all of a sudden. He's well suited to it. I think this season he'll have more cards than Clinton's this season, I'm sure.
Okay, the votes are it's Paqueta's hedging ahead. NUFC fans, who do you want, Maddison or Paqueta? If you can vote on the community page, next 5 minutes I'll give the final result. It's 55% to Paqueta, 45% to Maddison. So certainly a bit of an about turn in the last 5 or 6 minutes. Mark Hillary says there's no team that relies on 3 midfielders. You need 5 good midfielders these days to get through a season with how many games that come thick and fast. John Ball, Joe says, what about Tielemans? Also been mentioned on a number of occasions. Excuse the spelling. I did see one journalist say that, even if we do get Maddison, don't write off Newcastle going for Tielemans as well, Joe. I mean, we've also been linked with Harvey Barnes over the weekend. So we are certainly trying to get somebody off Leicester.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, ultimately, if you want to compete with people, just sign them all. Why not? Tielemans is class. We've talked about Tielemans on here, haven't we? Arguably a different type of midfielder than James Maddison. Joe Linton, Bruno, Tielemans, Shelvey, how many's too many, as I say, and I think, Tielemans would be big money as well. Maddison's going to be big money, but I think Tielemans would be as well. Are we going to go and give Leicester City £100 million? I'm not so sure. So I'll stick with Maddison and say we'll leave Tielemans till next summer.
Okay, it's time to put you both under pressure. Ross, I'm going to come to you first because you were scribbling away with your pen. So I think you've probably got it in the bag, just in case Joe hasn't. So your starting 11 for Forest on Saturday, 3:00.
So I've only got one dilemma, which I'll quickly talk through, but the rest of it I think I'm fairly happy with. I've got Nick Pope in goal. and I think that's the way Eddie Howe will go as well, by the way. But I think Nick Pope and goal, back four, Trippier at right back, Matt Targett left back, Fabian Schär, if he's 100% fit, and Sven Botman in the centre of defence. I'd go Botman over Dan Burn. Probably unfortunate for Dan Burn after the way he played, but that's how I would go. My midfield three, I'm guessing that Shelby will still be injured and won't be back from his hamstring. So I'm going for Bruno and Joe Linton, obviously. And then the third one is the real issue that I've got in that 4-3-3 that I'm playing. And I'm not going Joe Willock. The choice for me is either Sean Longstaff, who I think's done well in pre-season and fits into that system as well, or Elliot Anderson, again, who's had a really strong pre-season. And I'm wondering whether I would throw Elliot Anderson into that first game, into that starting 11 at home against Forest. I can't quite make my mind up. Love to hear what other people think, but Elliot Anderson or Sean Longstaff. Front three would be Miggy Almiron, who's been excellent in pre-season, and he's not my favourite player, but he's been excellent. Callum Wilson through the middle and St. Maximin on the left-hand side.
Who was your centre-half pairing?
Fabian Schär and Sven Botman.
Right, okay. And that's your starting 11. Yeah. Is that the starting 11 that you think Eddie Howe will pick, Ross?
I don't think it's too far off, to be honest. I don't think it's too far off. I think he might play Joe Willock in the centre. I think he might play a three of Bruno, Joe Linton and Willock. That was, you try to read things, don't you, from the pre-season games, and you try to read things from how it looked in the game against Atalanta, the starting 11 and what the combinations were like versus the starting 11 against the following day against Bilbao. So you try to read these little partnerships. I think that'll be pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie Howe's having the same headache as I am over that third midfield position.
It's interesting. Okay, Joe, what's your team, please?
Yeah, well, I grew up playing Championship Manager, and I had a favourite formation, so I'll come on to that shortly because I think I've solved the defensive conundrum.
Did you ever win it, by the way? Did you ever win it, Joe?
No, I was absolutely crap. No, I was cat. So I've got Nick Pope in goal, and I think pretty much I've got the same side as Ross. So Trippier, Schär, Botman, Targett, Joe Linton, Bruno. As I say, I'd put Shelby in, and then obviously realised, as Ross has just said, that he's injured. So I actually wondered about Sean Longstaff, but I've gone for Joe Willock. And then Almiron, Wilson, and Sam Maximin up front. If we were to play silly buggers a little bit, and I don't think Eddie Howe will, I don't think we'll do this, but potentially, if you can't decide which centre half's coming in, do you put Pope in goal? Do you play Botman, Schär, and Burn at the back with Trippier down the right and Targett bombing on down the left? Bruno and J7 in the middle. Miggy Almiron at the head of that triangle, and Sam Maximin and Wilson as a front two. And that's why I never won anything on Championship Manager.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people feeling that the centre half pairing could be the one that we saw on Saturday, which was, of course, Jamal Lascelles and Sven Botman, especially with Jamal Lascelles being given the captaincy again for the forthcoming season. And no offence to Nottingham Forest, but we're not playing Manchester City, and that could be the thinking. But the biggest dilemma is the goalkeeper. That is the big dilemma, and that centre half pairing. I think most people have got Targett and Trippier at fullbacks and Sven Botman in, which Ross rightly points out is so harsh on Dan Burn, who hasn't really put a foot wrong. But the midfield itself, I think you're right. I think in all but one, Joe. I think it will be Sean Longstaff. I think he's done well the pre-season. I think he's played most games. I think Botman and Lascelles have played a lot together as well in the pre-season, which might give you that, which might be the reason that people are looking at that and saying that could be possible. And I think the front three pick themselves as well, but it's going to be interesting. And I think Ross is right when he says that, Eddie Howe is going to be having, the same kind of thoughts. We had a question from Steve Middlemas. I just want to ask you this, guys, because we only got 5 minutes left. Alexis Sanchez is a free agent, did well at Arsenal. What's your thoughts on that, Ross?
No, not a million, zillion, trillion years for me. He did okay at Arsenal. His last 6 months at Arsenal, he was pony. He went to Man United, he was pony. He's gone over to Inter and been triple pony over there. So not in a million years for me.
Triple pony, that's classic. What about you, Joe?
Nah, quadruple pony, Ross. No chance.
Yeah, no chance for that. Barry, thank you for sending us your team. He says Pope, Target, Byrne and Botman, Trippier, Big Joe, Bruno, Maddison. You're hopeful that we sign him. Wilson, ASM and Werner. Subs, Shaw, Longstaff, Kraft, Dummett, Anderson, Harrison, Wood and Willock.
Would anybody start Elliot Anderson? Is it just me who's considering starting Elliot Anderson? Does it just as a wild card? Is he not in a that? Has he done?
I think if he stays, Ross. I think if he stays, because we've got the 5 options on the bench, the seven subs, 5 to come on. I think he stays because of his age, because he's a homegrown option. I think he stays. I think you could be right if Maddison comes in. Maybe he will go out on loan, because we did hear Eddie Howe say that, at this moment in time, he's staying. But that would lead me to believe that potentially, if Maddison comes in, he would need to go out on another season-long loan, because he's just not going to get that opportunity, is he, Ross?
No, I don't see him. If someone like Maddison comes in, I don't see him getting the game time that he probably needs. I think it would be stunting his development. There's 2 sides to the conversation, isn't there? There's one, you keep him in and around the squad, and he's training every day with Bruno, with Maddison, with these Premier League Kieran Trippiers. He's training with these quality players, and he's going to get on the bench, and he's going to be in around that squad, and they can look after him and develop him through his training schedule and playing alongside these quality players. But I think at 19, I think he needs another at least 6 months just out on loan, playing in competitive senior men's football where results matter. One of the things you have to remember coming out with 23s is results don't matter in the under 23s. You haven't got some 32-year-old teammate alongside you who's desperate for a win bonus to support his family or whatever it might be. There's not that reliance on results when you're playing 23s or you're playing academy football. Getting into that senior football is in coming up against it physically and the mental side of things. It seemed with Elliot Anderson how much he's came on through that spell at Bristol Rovers. So I'd love him to stay at the club, but I think he might go out. I'm going to say I'm going to start him on Saturday against Forest. That's it, done. Sean Longstaff's done well, but I'm starting Elliot Anderson.
Joe?
Interesting, isn't it? Really interesting. And you talk about players putting pressure on other players, and who does James Maddison put pressure on? Do you know what? We've talked a hell of a lot about Elliot Anderson this summer. We haven't really talked about Joe Willock, if I'm being honest. So maybe there's pressure within on these lads. I don't know. I'll stick with what I said at the beginning of the transfer window. I think for me, Ross has just hit the nail on the head. I think a year playing football somewhere, preferably in that top 10 of the Championship for Anderson, will do him the absolute world of good. Has he done enough? I haven't been at any of the pre-season games. I wasn't there last weekend, weekend just gone, so I haven't seen Anderson. I hear he played really well, and the bits that I've picked up on, but I don't know. Will we go steady with Sean Longstaff? Will we actually try and bomb on a little bit with Joe Willock? We shall see. I personally don't think it'll be Anderson, because I wonder if Eddie Howe's the type of guy who'll just roll the dice. I think he's a little bit more calculated and a little bit more play it safe than that. as long as anybody, I don't care with this, as long as they stick one on our friend Jesse Lingard, or Jay Lings, as he's effectively known, in the first 5 minutes. I don't care who plays in the middle, to be honest.
Joe, I'll get your prediction on Friday when you're back with us. Ross, prediction for the weekend's game?
I'm going to go Forest. Look, Forest are a very well organised and well drilled team. Steve Cooper has done a fantastic job there, an absolutely fantastic job there, to get them from where they were when he took over into the top flight. I think, having said all that, I'm going to go for a 3-0 Newcastle win.
3-0 Newcastle win. Great stuff. Look forward to getting you on next week, Ross. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the moderators. I'm off to pre-record a show with Ben Jacobs. That'll be Wednesday night's offering from NUFC Matters. Tomorrow night is Geordie here. Geordie there with Stu, Mitch, Neil and all the gang. Thursday night, as always, Superman and Gibbo. Friday night, 3 Amigos. Plenty look forward to on NUFC Matters. Joe, thank you. See you on Friday. Ross, see you next Tuesday. Take care, lads.
Cheers now.
See you guys. Take